Sir, step back. First class isn't for people like you. The words came out sharp with no hesitation, just cold precision. Captain Evelyn Reed didn't even glance twice. She flicked her hand toward the rear cabin like she was swatting a fly. You'll need to verify your priority status before we allow you to take that seat or try economy. They may have space for you. A few nearby passengers looked up, the way people do when they sense something wrong but aren't sure if they want to get involved. One of them, a white man in his early 50s with slicked back hair and a silver watch the size of a cookie, leaned over and shoved a briefcase onto the middle table. "Let's keep this area clear, all right?" he barked. His voice wasn't loud, but it was loaded with money, with entitlement, and with the assumption that the man standing in front of him didn't belong. That man, Dr. Marcus Thorne, took it all in silently. He wore a simple gray button-down shirt, casual navy slacks, and loafers that had seen better days. There was nothing about him that screamed billionaire, nothing that hinted he was the owner of the very jet they were standing in. And that was exactly the point. Marcus was running a test, an internal ethics and conduct protocol at Zenith Aviation, the luxury charter company he had quietly acquired the year before. He wanted to see how the staff treated passengers who didn't fit their assumptions of wealth and power. So, he boarded as a last-minute addition, dressed modestly, his real identity hidden. But this wasn't just a protocol failure, it was something uglier. Captain Evelyn Reed, mid-40s, once flew for a major airline that Zenith Technologies acquired in 2024. She had survived the merger, but barely. The tension in her voice wasn't just about policy, it carried resentment, and now she saw a casually dressed black man stepping into a world she didn't think he belonged in. Marcus handed her a boarding stub, the decoy pass created for this test. She held it between two fingers like it might stain her gloves. "Unverified," she declared, snapping it back into his chest. "Security will be notified if you don't return to your assigned section." He didn't move. He glanced at the briefcase now resting where his own bag had been, watched the man next to it. Gregory Vance reclined like he'd just conquered something. Gregory was a private equity executive with a long list of failed companies and a longer list of connections. He looked at Marcus the way a man might look at a mistake in his office lobby. Dismissively, from across the aisle, a younger passenger tilted his phone slightly, capturing the moment. Leo Kwan, 31, a well-known travel blogger, recognized Marcus instantly, but said nothing. He had seen this kind of treatment before, too many times, but this was different, this time. The man being targeted wasn't just another passenger, he was the person who had redefined private aviation 17 years earlier. In 2005, Marcus had been a rising star at an aviation firm in Denver. Despite his record-breaking design for fuel-efficient aircraft interiors, he was repeatedly passed over. His ideas credited to others. By 2018, he'd walked away from corporate aerospace and launched Zenith Technologies. In 2023, he'd bought Zenith Aviation and its fleet of Gulfstream jets outright now. In 2025, he stood in his own aircraft being asked to prove he belonged. Evelyn turned toward the cockpit, muttering to her first officer, "I'm flagging this guy. He's delaying our departure," and then louder to the cabin. "Folks, apologies for the holdup. We're resolving a seating issue." Murmurs rippled down the aisle. Marcus's face remained calm, but his jaw tightened just slightly. This wasn't just unprofessional. It was targeted, strategic. Gregory Vance stretched his legs and flashed what looked like a first-class elite badge. "I specifically requested privacy," he said. "I assume you'll resolve this?" Evelyn nodded as if she'd just received a corporate directive. Marcus quietly reached for his phone and tapped once. "Anya, activate Protocol 3, he said into his earpiece. On the other end, Anya Petrova, his executive assistant, answered with no hesitation. "It's set, sir." Her tone was calm, clinical, but beneath it was fire. She had seen this happen before, and she knew what was about to follow. Leo leaned over just a little and whispered, "This isn't right. You know that." Marcus didn't flinch. "Log. It, Leo," he said, voice low and even. Leo tapped on his phone, composing a post for Zenith Aviation Crew Profile's black passenger as non-priority. No ID check, no grace, just removal. In 2025, on his own plane. The post went up within seconds. Notifications followed like sparks in dry grass. Evelyn's hand hovered near the wall console. "We'll need to verify you before this can go any further," she said, "or you can leave. Those are your options." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Or," he replied evenly, "you verify your own conduct first." "You're going to answer for this?" Chloe Dunn. The flight attendant stepped forward holding a tablet. She said nothing, but her fingers danced across the screen. Marcus saw her briefly glance at the passenger manifest, then tap something twice a few moments later. A notification came through on Anya's console back at Zenith headquarters. "Passenger unauthorized. Recommend removal. No explanation, no due process. Just a digital accusation in a closed-loop system. Back on board." Gregory slid a folded note onto Marcus's seat before standing up and sauntering off. Marcus picked it up, unfolded it, and read the words in looping ink. "Try budget flights." He folded it again, tucked it into his pocket, and turned towards Evelyn. "You're destroying everything this company stands for," he said softly. 1 second. At a time, from the cabin's forward display, a ping sounded. Leo had posted a photo of the note, and in less than 3 minutes it had racked up over 2,000 likes. Marcus's face remained composed, but beneath the calm, the pressure built like steam in a sealed chamber. Passengers were shifting, whispering. One of them, a black tech founder named Omar Sterling, watched with a quiet intensity. He hadn't said a word, but his eyes hadn't left Marcus once. He recognized the pattern, too, and then Marcus did something that caught everyone off guard. He reached down, adjusted the cuff of his sleeve, and said, "If you thought this was going to end quietly, you've misread the moment." His smart ring vibrated softly. Protocol 3 had reached the escalation threshold. If you've ever been profiled, if you've ever been told you don't belong where you've already earned your place, if you've stayed calm while they tried to shrink you, this story is for you. But before we dive deeper, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. Now, follow along. Marcus is about to show what justice looks like. 12 minutes at 38,000 feet. First Officer Daniel Cole didn't waste time. As soon as Captain Evelyn Reed waved him over, he stomped down the aisle like he'd just been given clearance to remove a problem. "He's not on the verified manifest," she said, loud enough for several passengers to hear. "And if he's refusing to comply, we may need to escalate." Daniel didn't ask questions. He stopped in front of Marcus and squared his shoulders. "Sir, you'll need to leave this cabin immediately or be escorted, out by security." His voice was gruff, old school, with a tinge of aggression that made the cabin go still again. Marcus remained seated, his posture calm but alert. "Understood, then verify me." He tapped his smart ring once more, sending a secondary ping to Anya's console in the Zenith command suite. At that same moment, Chloe Dunn, the flight attendant, pulled up the passenger log on her tablet and manually flagged Marcus as unauthorized. No badge scan, no ID check, just one entry. Not on record, it was enough. Evelyn turned to Daniel and gave a slight nod. Meanwhile, Gregory Vance smirked. "This is what happens when you let just anyone think they can buy a seat in here," he muttered, half under his breath, but loud enough to be caught on video. Leo Kwan, still filming, glanced up from his phone. He had seen racial bias before. He'd even reported on it once, but never this openly, this fast. He typed quickly, Zenith aviation pilot accuses black man of being non-priority. No verification, just removal threats. Witnessed it myself. Hash discrimination in the skies within seconds. The post had crossed 2,000 views. Comments flooded in, name the airline, post the faces, tag FAA, and then a reply from an aviation journalist. DM me, we'll run this tonight. But the humiliation wasn't over. Evelyn turned back to Marcus and said, with a mock pleasant tone, "You could always apply for a maintenance role. Sir, we're always looking for people who understand the insides of a plane." A few passengers chuckled uncomfortably. Gregory laughed outright. Wouldn't be the first time one of them walked up here thinking they belong. A woman, seated across the aisle, gave him a sharp look but said nothing. Marcus stayed seated, unmoved. "You're violating every standard your badge is supposed to uphold." His voice was steady, measured, but not quiet. "You're no longer following procedure. You're profiling." From her phone in Zenith headquarters, Anya Petrova watched the tampering unfold in real time. Chloe's input had triggered an alert in the internal compliance system, an alert meant for cases of data manipulation. She picked up the phone and called Marcus. "Sir," she said, "Chloe just logged you as unauthorized without ID confirmation. I'm locking the log, filing an internal complaint now." Marcus nodded, not needing to say anything. She continued. "And Daniel, he's citing a security violation. I'm escalating to Isabel." Isabel. Cortez, Zenith's senior counsel, was already scanning the incoming reports. Back on the plane, Daniel leaned toward Marcus and growled, "You can either leave quietly or we'll call airport security." Marcus's reply was soft. "Call who you need to, but start by calling your conscience." Leo, sitting nearby, was typing again. Zenith. First officer threatens passenger with security. No cause given. Tension rising. Isabel's voice buzzed through Marcus's earpiece. "Marcus, I'm initiating Protocol 303. All internal logs are being preserved. Do not leave your seat. Their entire chain of actions is being recorded at that same moment." The display screens in the forward cabin began updating with news alerts. Bloomberg had picked up Leo's earlier post. The headline scrolled across the ticker. "Passenger mistreatment on Zenith aviation flight. Viral post suggests racial bias. Evelyn saw it." She walked down the aisle, grabbed Marcus's briefcase, which had been returned to the aisle seat, and moved it to a nearby cabinet. "Unclaimed item," she said coldly. Marcus watched her, then looked at Gregory, who offered a smug shrug. Gregory then stood and made his next move. "This gentleman boarded without clearance," he said loudly to the crew. "I saw it myself." He pushed past the gate staff, checked the security footage. It was a lie, he knew it. Everyone who had been watching Marcus board had seen him enter quietly, escorted by a gate agent. But the accusation, once spoken, stuck like oil on water. Leo's voice came out louder than expected. "That's false. I watched him board. Gate agent. Let him in. He didn't speak to anyone." Evelyn ignored him. "Passengers, please remain seated. We are investigating a manifest discrepancy." It sounded official, clean, sanitized, but every word reeked of evasion. Back at Zenith HQ, Isabel typed faster. "We're filing formal misconduct charges against Evelyn. And Chloe, Daniel, too." "But Marcus, they just reported you as a trespasser to the terminal security." Marcus didn't blink. "Let them come," Anya added. "This has moved to full protocol status. All posts are being archived. Leo's content just crossed. 500,000 views. Bloomberg tagged us Reuters just requested comment. I'm routing media to Isabel inside the cabin." The tension was rising by the minute. Gregory leaned toward Marcus and said, "There's nothing you can do." "They've already decided what you are," Marcus replied without looking at him, "and they'll soon remember who I am." Chloe paced near the galley, watching the front screen scroll with news coverage. She whispered something to Evelyn, then tapped again on her tablet, reclassifying Marcus's seat as vacant. Leo caught the moment in a photo. Flight attendant just marked Dr. Thorne's seat vacant while he's sitting in it. Tell me again, this isn't coordinated. That name, Dr. Thorne, hadn't been spoken aloud yet, but Leo had known all along. He kept it quiet until now. The next post was explosive. Breaking. Passenger being profiled is Dr. Marcus Thorne, CEO of Zenith Technologies. He owns the company that runs this flight. It took only 90 seconds for that update to hit trending status. Evelyn turned toward the cabin screen just in time to see the image of Marcus appear beneath the headline, "Tech Billionaire Allegedly Profiled on His Own Jet." The cabin shifted, quietly, uneasily. Marcus didn't gloat, he didn't raise his voice. He simply looked Evelyn in the eye and said, "You just profiled your employer, and you did it in front of the world." The cabin doors stayed closed, security hadn't arrived yet. But the situation was unraveling quickly, and the cracks were now visible. Leo looked down at his phone and whispered, "Marcus, your name's everywhere now." Marcus leaned back slightly. "Good," he said, "then let them watch what happens next." Captain Evelyn Reed stood near the front of the cabin, her jaw tight, eyes darting from Marcus to the flight display screen above row 1A, where Bloomberg's headline still flashed. Billionaire, CEO allegedly profiled on his own jet, but instead of backing down, she doubled down. She walked the aisle with the kind of composure that masked fear with authority. "We've had enough disruption," she announced. "I'm now requiring financial verification for continued occupancy in first class." Her voice was clipped, measured. She turned to Marcus, who hadn't moved from his seat. "Sir, I'll need to see proof of payment or credentials, right now." Marcus didn't speak immediately, he just stared at her, slowly, deliberately. He was no longer just a calm observer of his own test. He was a man being publicly stripped of his dignity. First Officer Daniel Cole joined her, his voice louder and more hostile. "You're refusing to comply with policy. That's grounds for removal." Marcus didn't rise. He simply asked, "What policy requires a passenger to disclose financials to sit in their assigned seat?" Daniel stepped forward, fists clenched. "I said, get off the plane." A hush fell over the cabin. Leo Kwan was still filming, discreetly from his seat. Other passengers had their phones out now, too. Nobody was speaking, but everyone was watching. And then Gregory Vance, arrogant, smug, and emboldened, stood up and waved a platinum badge in the air. "This is what a priority passenger looks like," he shouted, pointing at Marcus. "And that is what an imposter looks like," he chuckled, cruel and confident. "Try economy, sir, if they'll even let you on at all." Marcus sat still. His expression didn't change, but his silence spoke volumes. Chloe Dunn, holding her tablet, called toward the galley. "Security's on the way. We've flagged this as disruptive behavior." She made no eye contact with Marcus as she logged a final note. "Subject failed verification. Escalate." That's when Jared Nash appeared. Early 40s, tall, white, dressed in the dark. Blazer worn by Zenith Aviation's onboard security leads. He walked with purpose and stopped at Marcus's seat, towering over him. "Sir, I need you to put away your device and vacate this seat immediately," he ordered, eyes cold. When Marcus didn't respond right away, Jared reached out and smacked Marcus's tablet off the tray. It clattered to the floor with a sharp thud. Gasps rose from surrounding seats. One passenger, a middle-aged woman in 3D, put her hand over her mouth. Leo typed furiously. "Security lead just hit Dr. Thorne's tablet. Physical contact made. This is assault. #Zenith fail." Marcus raised one hand slowly, not in surrender, but in caution. "You just crossed a line," he said softly. Jared didn't flinch. "We've been authorized by the captain. Move." From her desk, Isabel Cortez's voice crackled in Marcus's earpiece. "Marcus, initiate protocol 303. Without breaking eye contact with Jared, Marcus tapped twice on his smart ring. A signal bounced back to Anya's console in Zenith HQ. Within seconds, a full internal log backup was initiated, including audio, video, and manifest data from the flight. Meanwhile, Anya scanned Gregory Vance's badge entry and frowned. "Sir," she said over the line, "that priority badge Gregory just waved, it's a fake. His credentials expired last year. I'm logging it now." Marcus nodded silently. Isabel added, "We're filing a passenger ethics violation with his firm." Back in the cabin, Evelyn folded her arms. "You're now being detained under internal aviation protocol." Her voice was proud, firm, final. Gregory leaned forward, sneering. "You're nothing but a tech guy with a seat you didn't earn," Marcus replied in a voice so low it was barely audible. But every word landed like stone. "You've all made your choices. Now you'll live with them." Chloe stepped forward to hover beside Jared. "We've got confirmation from the pilot. Remove him." At that moment, Anya texted Leo directly. "They're violating corporate protocol. Post everything. Let the public see." Leo didn't hesitate. He hit upload. A 2-minute video stitched together the denial, the badge flash, the verbal mockery, and the slap of the tablet. It was raw, undeniable within minutes. The video was trending worldwide. Bloomberg issued an update. Forbes reposted Leo's footage. Screens aboard the plane reflected the updates live. In bold letters, CEO Marcus Thorne profiled, threatened, and physically confronted on his own jet. But the final blow was still coming. Marcus called out calmly, "Anya, patch me into Isabel." A moment later, Isabel's voice came through on speaker for all to hear. "This is Isabel Cortez, Corporate Counsel for Zenith Technologies and parent holder of Zenith Aviation. We are confirming that Dr. Marcus Thorne is listed on this flight as part of an internal audit. Any actions taken to remove him constitute a breach of internal protocol and will trigger immediate legal review." Gasps filled the cabin. A woman from row 1C whispered, "He owns this airline?" Evelyn's face froze. Daniel took one step back. Jared looked at Chloe, suddenly unsure. Marcus sat, quietly. Then, with no anger, no drama, just clarity, he said, "I am the CEO of Zenith Technologies. This aircraft is mine, and your time on it is over." It wasn't just a statement, it was a shift. Power had returned to its rightful place. The pilot, the first officer, the flight attendant, the security lead, all now faced a truth they couldn't run from. As Isabel added, "Expect formal notices by the time this flight touches down." Leo posted his final video of the hour. They humiliated him. They denied him. They hit him. And now they've been exposed by the man they thought they could erase. Captain. Evelyn Reed's face was pale beneath her professionally applied makeup. The live news ticker above seat 1A now cycled through phrases like "CEO targeted aboard own jet" and "Zenith Aviation staff under internal review." Still, she pressed forward, unwilling to surrender control of the cabin. "Jared," she barked, her voice tight with panic, masked as command. "Remove him, immediately." "This is a policy breach." Jared Nash, still standing beside Marcus's seat, hesitated. His hand hovered just inches from Marcus's arm. He could feel the shift in the air, not just from the headline, but from the murmurs, rising through the cabin. Passengers were no longer passive. They were filming, whispering, questioning. Then Gregory Vance stood up again, almost triumphant. "Why are we delaying this?" he said. Voice sharp, "The man doesn't belong here. Get him off this plane." He turned and looked around, hoping for agreement. Instead, silence met him. A silence that felt like judgment in seat 2B, Omar Sterling. an emerging black entrepreneur and one of Marcus's hidden guests, finally spoke up. "You keep saying he doesn't belong, but I wonder, Gregory, what makes you so sure? Is it his clothes, his skin, or that he didn't bow to you?" Evelyn shot him a glare. "Stay out of this, sir. You're not involved." Omar folded his arms. "I am now." From her Zenith headquarters terminal, Anya Petrova watched every second through the aircraft's live feed telemetry, her fingers moving swiftly across the keyboard. "Marcus," she said through his earpiece, "Chloe just locked your flight. Log. It's a forced override on her tablet. She's trying to erase your record of being on this jet." Marcus's eyes narrowed, though his face remained calm. "Tell Isabel," he replied, already on the line. Isabel Cortez responded immediately. "I'm unlocking the override and securing all internal logs under legal protocol. That's a violation of corporate and FAA policy." Her voice was steady, controlled, but beneath it, fire burned. Inside the cabin, Marcus finally stood slowly, calmly. Then he faced the crew and said, "You want to escalate. Fine, but before you do, ask yourselves, are you absolutely certain you know who you're talking to?" Evelyn took a step back, uncertain. She glanced at Daniel, who was visibly sweating. "He's bluffing," she said under her breath, but Daniel wasn't so sure anymore. "Captain," he muttered, "maybe we should wait for confirmation." Marcus ignored them. He turned his attention to Jared. "You grabbed my device. You raised your voice. You put your hands on me in front of dozens of witnesses and multiple cameras. Do you still believe I'm just another passenger?" Jared blinked. Then, slowly, he stepped back. Just then, one of the cabin displays changed. Leo Kwan had uploaded a full timeline of the incident, titled "Minute by Minute: How a Billionaire CEO Was," profiled on his own jet. In less than 30 seconds, it was trending globally. Reuters posted it. NBC picked it up. Aviation International, a watchdog publication, issued a damning bulletin. Zenith aviation staff under fire after discrimination incident. High-value clients begin pulling bookings. Evelyn's mouth twitched. "I don't care who you are," she snapped. "You're violating chain of command." "No," Marcus cut in. Calm, but firm. "You violated trust, dignity, and corporate ethics, and now you're about to be held accountable." Anya's voice came back through the line. "Marcus, Protocol 3 is finalized. Internal HQ just approved the full disciplinary pathway. Your orders are now binding," Isabel added. "You are officially recognized as acting authority on this flight. Security will stand down upon directive." Before Evelyn could speak again, Marcus turned to her directly. "Captain Evelyn Reed, First Officer Daniel Cole, Flight Attendant Chloe Dunn, Security Lead Jared Nash. Your actions today have failed every standard this company upholds. Effective immediately. Your services are terminated pending legal review." He paused. "Gregory Vance, you're banned from all Zenith Aviation charters indefinitely." The announcement stunned the cabin. Passengers froze, phones filmed, no one moved. Evelyn laughed, brittle and incredulous. "You can't fire me. I'm the captain of this flight." Marcus didn't blink. "And I'm the owner of this aircraft. My authority supersedes yours." Isabel's voice echoed again, now on loudspeaker. "This is official. All orders given by Dr. Marcus Thorne are supported by Zenith's legal office. Terminations are valid under contractual violation clauses." Evelyn's eyes darted to the flight deck as if seeking backup, but Daniel had collapsed into his seat, face in his hands. Jared stared at the floor. Chloe clutched her tablet like it was a life vest in open water. And then came the twist no one was prepared for. "Isabel," Marcus said, his voice still calm, "has corporate reviewed their complaint history?" Isabel's voice turned grim. "We have," Evelyn Reed has 20 logged complaints for racial profiling over the last 3 years, sealed by internal manipulation, all hidden by Daniel Cole. It's over, Anya added. Complaints were blocked from review, but the audit caught. They're exposed, Leo posted again. Hidden history of profiling uncovered, crew fired, passengers cheer, CEO reclaims the sky underneath the post. A passenger comment read simply, "We watched justice happen in real time." Marcus took one last look around the cabin, then returned to his seat. The jet, though still grounded, had already taken off, the only way that mattered. Marcus re-entered the cabin moments later, no longer in his modest shirt and slacks. Now he wore a tailored navy suit with the Silver Zenith Technologies pin gleaming just below his collar. His walk was quiet but commanding, like gravity had shifted and followed him instead of the earth. Conversations stopped, phones rose, even the sound of the engines humming outside seemed to fade. Evelyn Reed stood stiffly near the cockpit, arms crossed, defiance clinging to her like a shrinking coat in a downpour. She blinked at him as though trying to convince herself this wasn't real. "You again," she scoffed, voice brittle. Marcus stopped 3 feet in front of her and spoke clearly, letting the words fall where they needed to. "Captain Evelyn Reed. First, Officer Daniel Cole. Flight Attendant Chloe Dunn. Security Lead Jared Nash. You're all relieved of duty, effective immediately." He turned to the passengers as his voice deepened. "You are witnessing the termination of Zenith Aviation personnel under violation of corporate ethics, profiling, and breach of internal security protocols. All actions are being logged. Gasps and murmurs erupted. Phones filmed everything." The story had fully flipped. Chloe stepped forward, eyes wide, gripping her tablet like it could shield her. "This is outrageous. You're not even." Marcus raised a hand and cut her off. "I'm Dr. Marcus Thorne, CEO of Zenith Technologies, owner of Zenith Aviation, and the man whose identity you tried to erase in front of these witnesses." He turned and looked at Leo. "Thank you for logging the truth." Leo nodded, his fingers still. Moving across his screen, Daniel muttered, "He's bluffing." But then Isabel's voice crackled over the cabin's intercom. "This is Isabel Cortez, legal counsel for Zenith Technologies. The orders issued by Dr. Thorne are authorized. Full corporate oversight is active. If any of the aforementioned crew remain on board past this statement, they will be trespassing." Evelyn's mouth opened, but no words came out. The blood had drained from her face. Daniel sat down heavily, the fight gone from his body. Jared removed his badge and handed it to a quiet passenger before walking toward the rear galley. Chloe looked around as if someone might still come to her defense. No one moved. Marcus turned. Again. Gregory Vance, the man straightened in his seat, eyes narrowing. "You're not a crew member," Marcus said, "but your behavior, documented and confirmed, violated our passenger code of conduct. You're hereby banned from all Zenith Aviation charters, effective immediately and permanently." Gregory barked a laugh. "You think you can just erase me?" he snapped. "I'm not erasing you," Marcus replied. "You did that yourself. I'm just enforcing the consequences." Leo posted a clip with the caption, "Dr. Thorne doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't retaliate. He delivers consequences like a mirror, calm, clear, and final." At that moment, the forward screen updated with a headline from Reuters. Zenith CEO fires entire jet crew after being profiled. Identity revealed mid-flight, a sub-headline followed. New allegations surface, hidden bias complaints covered by flight officers. Isabel spoke again over the comms. "We've just concluded an internal log audit. Captain Reed has 20 bias complaints over the past 3 years. 17 of those were suppressed or dismissed by First Officer Cole. Chloe Dunn manually adjusted at least 8 passenger logs in the last 2 quarters. Mr. Nash violated physical conduct policy during today's incident. All violations have been logged and submitted to FAA and EEOC review. The cabin turned into a courtroom in real time. Evelyn's voice cracked. "This isn't fair. You set us up." Marcus turned to her calmly. "No, I set a standard. You decided how to meet it, or in this case, how to fail it." Passengers applauded, some quietly, others more openly. One woman clapped with tears in her eyes. A man near the rear said, "Thank you." Another leaned forward and whispered, "This changes everything." Marcus looked around, nodding once. Then he addressed the cabin, not just the guilty crew. Zenith Aviation was built on one belief, that luxury doesn't excuse bias, that comfort doesn't come at the cost of dignity. Today was a test, not of me, of this system. And now it will change. Permanently. Anya's voice came through his earpiece. "Marcus, you need to hear this." Isabel just found a pattern. Chloe and Daniel worked together to flag passengers with a code marked visual mismatch. Marcus's jaw tightened. "What does that mean?" Isabel answered immediately. It was an informal term, used to quietly label passengers who, by their appearance, didn't match expected profiles of wealth. Most of them were people of color. The cabin went silent. Marcus took one breath, then said, loud enough for every row to hear, "That ends today." Leo posted again. Visual mismatch, that was the term they used. But Marcus Thorne didn't just match the profile. He built it. Then he burned the old one to the ground. Gregory stood again, pointing at passengers with a shaking hand. "You think this is justice? You're just tearing things down," a man in row 3 said calmly. "No, he's cleaning house." Chloe tried one last time, her voice trembling. "I have a family." Marcus looked at her with eyes full of quiet power. "And how many passengers did you try to erase without a second thought?" She had no answer. She turned and walked off the plane, past cameras, past silence, past her own undoing. Evelyn followed, still shaking her head. Jared walked behind her, already dialing a number he knew wouldn't connect anymore. Daniel remained seated a little longer, before rising with a face full of regret and shame, the weight of years bearing down. And Marcus. He stood tall in the aisle of his own aircraft, no longer underestimated, no longer hidden, no longer patient with systems that failed to see the people in front of them. The cabin didn't cheer loudly. They didn't need to. They had just witnessed something greater than revenge. They had witnessed justice. Marcus remained standing in the center aisle, the cabin now quiet, no longer tense but reflective. The entire crew, Evelyn, Daniel, Chloe, and Jared, had exited in silence. The mood had shifted, not just because the offenders were gone, but because everyone on board now understood they were part of something larger than a simple confrontation. They had watched a man reclaim his dignity and then use that moment to rebuild the sky itself. Marcus raised his left wrist slightly. With a single swipe across the surface of his smartwatch, he activated the Zenith Equity Program, an internal reform initiative he'd developed months earlier. The system, now live, would trigger real-time audits across Zenith Aviation, mandate comprehensive diversity training for all flight personnel, and install AI-powered equity monitors aboard every aircraft under his company's flag. Screens throughout the cabin lit up, one by one, with the program's icon, a silver horizon line cutting through a golden sky. It wasn't just a logo, it was a declaration. Passengers looked on in awe as Marcus turned to face them. Today wasn't about one man being denied a seat, he said, his voice calm but resolute. It was about a culture that still believes appearances determine worth. That ends now. Zenith Aviation will become the gold standard, not just for luxury, but for fairness, for humanity. Leo Kwan, still filming, posted a photo of the smartwatch screen lighting up. Captioned, "Marcus didn't just fire the crew, he rewired the system." The Zenith Equity Program begins now. From the Zenith Technologies headquarters, Anya's voice rang in Marcus's ear. CEO channel active, PR department is holding press calls, and corporate just issued a statement confirming the firings and launch of the program. Isabel chimed in as well. All log entries verified, FAA notified of immediate reforms. The FAA Deputy Director just acknowledged Zenith's initiative. On the record, at seat 2B, Omar Sterling leaned forward and asked quietly, "Marcus, is this going to reach beyond this plane?" Marcus turned toward him and nodded. "Yes, every passenger deserves to fly without fear of being judged. This plane is the first step, the rest follows." But the shadows of resistance hadn't fully cleared. From Anya's system feed, a red flag appeared. "Marcus," she said urgently, "we've just intercepted data. Chloe attempted to upload falsified compliance reports last week. She was part of a covert crew group that manipulated audit results to hide discriminatory behavior." Isabel immediately overrode the data stream, freezing the accounts linked to Chloe and Daniel. "They had a pattern," Isabel said grimly. "They used code phrases, flagged passengers without documentation, and buried internal reports. We've secured the files." Marcus took one breath, then addressed the cabin again. "For those of you wondering if this was isolated, know that it wasn't. A crew faction within our company attempted to distort internal records, hide complaints, and operate without accountability. That ends today. We've launched TrueSky, an AI audit system that flags inconsistencies and ensures no misconduct is ever buried again." From the back of the cabin, a middle-aged woman whispered, "He didn't just stop the plane. He changed the flight path of the whole company," Isabel added. "TrueSky is now installed across all Zenith aircraft. Internal corruption is being rooted out, and Marcus, that last speech, it's being streamed live by 3 news outlets." Leo posted again. "TrueSky is live. Zenith isn't just making promises, it's writing policy in real time." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment and exhaled, not in relief, but in responsibility. The kind that doesn't come from winning a fight, but from stepping into the work that follows. Then he opened his eyes and looked around. This isn't revenge, it's repair, and it's only the beginning. The passengers didn't erupt into cheers. Instead, they stood one row at a time and applauded quietly. The sound wasn't loud, it was deliberate, like justice had entered the cabin and everyone knew it. The flight never left the tarmac that day, but in every other way, it took off. By the time the passengers disembarked, Zenith Aviation was already making headlines not for luxury or innovation, but for accountability. As Marcus stepped off the Gulfstream G650 and onto the private terminal ramp, he wasn't followed by silence, he was followed by reform. Within hours, Evelyn Reed, Daniel Cole, Chloe Dunn, and Jared Nash were each placed under FAA investigation. Their certifications were suspended pending review. FAA representatives cited gross misconduct during passenger handling and willful suppression of internal bias complaints. Even Gregory Vance's firm felt the fallout. Once news of his conduct hit the wire, Zenith Technologies pulled all current contracts with Holt & Co., and they weren't the only ones. Within days, 3 other partner companies severed ties, citing ethics violations and public trust concerns. Inside Zenith headquarters, Anya Petrova updated Marcus on the internal audit response. Corporate terminated 6 additional employees, tied to the data manipulation ring. Legal is building a case file to send to federal regulators, and PR has confirmed bookings for Zenith Aviation are up 19% in the last 24 hours, Isabel added quietly. "Marcus, you didn't just protect your name, you created a blueprint for equity." But Marcus wasn't interested in headlines, he was focused on legacy. 1 week later, standing on the tarmac beside a freshly repainted Zenith aircraft, Marcus announced the launch of the Zenith Fund, a private foundation dedicated to providing underserved communities with access to aviation education, mentorship, and career placement, seeded with $30 million from his own assets. The fund's mission was simple: open the skies to those who had been told they didn't belong there. He invited Omar Sterling, the young tech founder who had witnessed the injustice firsthand, to become the first Zenith Fund Advisory Board member. "You didn't just speak up," Marcus told him. "You stood firm when it mattered. That's leadership." Omar accepted the invitation with tears in his eyes. Leo Kwan, whose posts had lit the fuse of public awareness, was invited to speak at the launch event. "I came aboard that flight as a blogger," he said to the crowd. "I left as a witness to change. Marcus didn't just hold people accountable. He showed us that power doesn't need to shout, it just needs to stand." Anya managed the fund's initial rollout and personally oversaw the selection of its first recipients. 5 high school students from marginalized communities in Baltimore, Detroit, and Houston, young people who dreamed of becoming pilots, engineers, and aviation designers. "Marcus," she said with a smile, "you didn't just build a company, you opened a door." Then came the twist no one expected. A retired pilot, now in his 70s, posted a handwritten letter on X in it. He confessed that a decade earlier, he had filed bias complaints against Evelyn Reed and watched them disappear. "I was too afraid to press it then," he wrote. "But Dr. Thorne gave me the courage to speak now. She didn't start this pattern, but she kept it alive, and he ended it." Reuters picked up the post and ran it with the headline, "Pilot Confession Confirms. Decade of Hidden Bias, Zenith CEO's Actions Spur Industry Reckoning." Marcus read it quietly, then nodded. "It was never just about one flight," he said. "It was about a culture that needed to be unmasked." Today, Zenith Aviation operates with a fully transparent review system. True Sky monitors crew interactions in real time, using AI to flag violations and protect against bias. The Zenith Equity Dashboard is visible to all employees, and the Zenith Fund has already helped over 600 students apply to flight schools, engineering, programs, and mentorships across the U.S. As for Marcus, his story became less about power and more about presence. He proved that leadership isn't measured by wealth, but by what you choose to do the moment someone tries to shrink you. He never yelled. He never pushed, he simply stood. And when the time came, he changed everything. If you've ever been dismissed, overlooked, or told you didn't belong, let this story remind you. Your seat is earned, not requested. Share this story. Support the Zenith Fund. And never forget, justice doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it walks down the aisle, calm and unstoppable.